any notes.
Everybody already done writing? equations. The first step when you're solving a radical equation is to isolate the radical on one side of the equation. So you are trying to get the radical by itself. Right now we have a positive 4 that's on the outside of our radical, so we need to take it and we need to move it over. We need to move this positive 4 over to the other side so that you can isolate the square root x plus 2. So we're going to do the opposite, do our inverse, which would be subtracting 4 from both sides. That will give you the square root of x plus 2 equals 3. Now we have to try to get underneath the square root. So you have to do the opposite of what the square root is. So what's the opposite of square root? The opposite of square root? What do you do to it? Square it. So we're going to square both sides. The square root is going to cancel out with your square, leaving you with x plus 2, and you have 9 on the right hand side. Now we have to subtract 2. So that cancels out, leaving you with x equals 7. Okay, so you've gotten x by itself now. The only thing is step number 3 says check your results. So once you found out what x is, you have to check it and see if it's an extraneous solution. Because you can get what x equals, but it may not work. So you have to plug x back into your equation to make sure that it works. So we're going to plug it into x plus 2 plus 4 equals 7. Wherever you see an x, you're going to plug in a 7. So we have an x right here. You have square root, our x is 7, plus 2 plus 4 equals 7. This gives you the square root of 7 plus 2 is 9 plus 4 equals 7. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. Does 7 equal 7? Yes. So x equals 7 is your solution. You always have to check. Because if you don't check, then you're going to get an answer for your x. But then when you plug it, if you don't plug it back in, you don't know if it's extraneous or not. And I'm letting you know now, I'm putting an extraneous solution on your test. Okay, so you have to check. What's up? You put on, that's your answer, is it extraneous? Okay. Any questions on this one? Pretty straightforward? What is the next page? Alright. Same concept, we're going to isolate our radical. So that's the first step. So I've got to get rid of this -1 in order to do that. We're going to add 1 to both sides, which gives you 6 equals the square root of x minus 2. Then you have to get rid of the square root. The opposite of square root is square. So we're going to square both sides. That gets rid of your square and square root because they cancel out. 6 squared is 36, and this is equal to x minus 2. Get x by itself, so you add 2 to both sides. You get 38 equals x, but now you have to check your solution. You'll plug it back into your equation, so 5 equals square root of x minus 2 minus 1. Wherever you see an x, you're going to plug in 38. I have an x right here. So I have 5 equals the square root of 38 minus 2 minus 1. 5 equals the square root of 36 minus 1. 5 equals 6 minus 1. Does 5 equal 5? questions on this one? Alright. So this is when it gets a little bit different because I'm not going to be able to, I can't get the one square root by itself, okay? See, what you want to do for this is you want to just go ahead and take the square of both sides. So we are going to square both sides because you've got two radicals in there, right? Okay? And you're trying to get the radical by itself. Moving that other radical over isn't going to help you any. So if we square both sides, what's going to happen on the left-hand side? It's going to cancel out, and you'll be left with x minus 12. But here, this is a binomial, okay? It's separated into two parts. Remember, parts are separated by plus and minus signs. So 2 is a term, and then square root x is a term. This 2 tells you that you need to write it twice. So I have 2 minus square root x times 2 minus square root x. We have to do FOIL now. First, outer, inner, last. I'm going to bring down my x minus 12, and this is equal to 2 times 2 gives you 4. 2 times negative square root x gives you negative 2 square root x. Negative x times 2 gives you negative 2 square root x. Negative square root x times negative square root x. That's a positive square root x squared, which is just positive x. Are you good on that? Mm-hmm. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we're going to combine some stuff. I have x minus 12 equals 4, negative 2 square root x, and negative 2 square root x. Okay. Whenever you are adding and subtracting radicals, this is that part that we said that I said I'm going to skip on that homework, was adding and subtracting radicals. Whenever you add and subtract radicals, you have to have the same number or the same letter under the radical. So you can't add like square root 5 and square root 4. You cannot combine them. But if you have square root x and you have square root x, you can, because it's the same letter under the radical. Everything under the radical is exactly the same, so you can combine them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So negative 2 square root x and negative 2 square root x is the same thing as negative 4 square root x. The only thing that changes is the outside of your radical. The inside of your radical will remain the same. Okay? What's up?
When you square it, why do you use
Because when you square it, you have to do FOIL, and when you do FOIL, the radical doesn't go away. Okay? So now we have one radical. We got to try to solve for x. So how are we doing? Let's get everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. What happens?
The crosses out from both sides.
They both cross out. I can now take this 4. Let's move that over to the left so that I can isolate this. Is that okay with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Subtracting 4 so that that crosses out. What are you left with on the left-hand side? Negative 16. On the right-hand side, what are you left with? Negative 4 square root x. Any questions up until this point? Okay. So how are we going to get this by itself? This is negative 4 times square root x. So you're going to divide by a negative 4 on both sides. Your negative 4s are going to cross out, and you're going to get 4 equals square root x. How do you get square root of x? How do you get the x by itself? Square both sides, that way your square root will cancel out with your square. And you get 16 equals x. But you still have to check your work. You've done all of that, but we don't know if it's extraneous or not. So you have to take this 16 and plug it back into your x in your original problem to see if it comes out and it works. Can somebody tell me what the original problem was? Time to go up.
Square root x minus 12 equals 2 minus square root x. 2 minus square root x.
Minus square root x. Thank you. Alright, so everywhere you see an x, you're going to plug in 16. So I have an x here, and I have an x here. You have the square root of 16 minus 12 equals 2 minus square root 16. So where I saw an x, I plugged in 16. This gives you the square root of 4, and this is 2 minus the square root of 16 is 4. So I have 2 equals 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. You good?
Wait, so if it's 16 minus 12, and that's under the square root, would you solve that and then do the square root?
That's what I did. I said 16 minus 12 is 4, so it's still the square root of 4.
Oh, okay.
And then I have 2 minus, I went ahead and did square root of 16 is 4.
Okay.
The square root of 4 is 2. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Are 2 and negative 2 the same thing?
No.
No. This does not work. Since it does not work, that is called extraneous. So see, we got a solution, and if you wouldn't check your work, on your test you would put x equals 16. And I said, no, that's wrong. Completely just 100% wrong. It's extraneous. Okay. Do you guys feel comfortable to try one on your own?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you this one. This one's just like this last one we did. So it's where you're going to have to square both sides because you've got a radical on both sides. And you need to do FOIL. I'll give you a minute to do that one. need another minute yet? Are we done?
Go for the check. Maybe you need to do King Square.
Alright, so what we get for our solution?
4 equals 1 equals A.
Okay, did it
Oh,
work?
no, 1 equals X, no.
So what's the solution?
Oh, it's,
Extraneous, because it didn't work, so I'm gonna work this out really quick. So we had to square both sides. This square root cancels out with that square, so that you're left with x plus 15. This, because it's a binomial, you have to FOIL and do 5 plus square root x, and another 5 plus square root x. This will give you x plus 15 equals, first, 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times square root x is positive 5 square root x. Square root x times 5 is positive 5 square root x. Square root x times square root x gives you a positive x. Then we combine our like terms. 5 square root x plus 5 square root x gives you a plus 10 square root x. Trying to get the x by itself, we're going to subtract x from both sides. That will cancel out our x's. Now you have 15 equals 25 plus x, 10 square root x. So I'm going to get the square root x by itself, so I have to get rid of my 25. 15 minus 25 gives you negative 10. This cancels out, and you're left with 10 square root x. Get the square root x by itself. It's 10 times square root x, so we're going to divide by 10. Negative 10 divided by 10 gives you negative 1. The 10 divided by 10 cancels out, leaving you a square root x. Now we have to get rid of our square root, so we're going to square both sides, but the part you have to remember is it's negative 1 squared. So you have to put this in parentheses. If you type negative 1 squared without the parentheses into the calculator, you're going to get negative 1. It's because it's doing order of operations. It's saying 1 squared, then it's multiplying it by the negative. But the whole thing is negative 1 squared. That's telling you negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So 1 equals, these cancel out, and you're left with x. So x equals 1. Plug it back into your original equation. What was the original equation? What was it?
Square root x plus 15 equals 5 plus square root x.
Okay, so we're going to plug in 1 for x. I have an x here, and I have an x here. So I have square root x is 1 plus 15 equals 5 plus square root x is 1. Square root of 1 plus 15, that's the square root of 16. Then we have 5 plus, what's the square root of 1? 1. Square root of 16 is 4. 5 plus 1 is 6. Does 4 equal 6? No. Extraneous solution. Any questions on that? Make sense? Good to go? Perfect. Okay. Solving a cube root equation. The same concept for this applies as the last one, except now we have a cube root, okay? To the 1/3 power is the same thing as saying cube root. You remember that? You learned that already. So to the 1/3 power is the same exact thing as a cube root. First thing you have to do is try to get the 6x minus 3 by itself. We're trying to isolate our radical. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. That gives you 2 parentheses x minus 3 to the 1/3 power equals 4. Next thing you have to do is you have 2 times this radical. So we have to divide by 2 on both sides to get rid of that before we can cube anything. So 6x minus 3 to the 1/3 power equals 4 divided by 2 is 2. To the 1/3 power is the exact same thing as having a cube root. So if the opposite of a square root is square, what's the opposite of a cube root?
3.
Cubit.
A cubit.
A cubit.
So we're going to cube both sides. Remember, power to a power, so you multiply 1/3 times 3 gives you 1. That's why it works. It cancels out. So you're left with 6x minus 3 equals 2 cubed. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. What's up? Good? Alright, so now we have to get x by itself. We're going to add 3 to both sides. Bless you. You get 6x equals 11 divided by 6 on both sides. x equals 11 6. Alright. You have to check your solution. So we're going to take that, we're going to plug it back in to our original equation. What was the original equation?
2 parentheses 6x
Hold on.
minus 3
Still not highlighting. So 2
parentheses 6x minus 3 minus 4
equals 0. Okay. We're going to plug in 11 6 wherever you see an x. So I have 2 parentheses 6 times 11 over 6 minus 3 to the 1/3 power minus 4 equals 0. You could plug it into your calculator, but I'm going to make you do it the hard way right now. You have 2, 6 times 11, 6. Your 6's are going to cancel out. You have 11 minus 3 to the 1/3 power minus 4 equals 0. 11 minus 3 gives you 8 to the 1/3 power minus 4 equals 0. This is the same thing as the cube root of 8. Cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 will give you 8. So 2 times 2 minus 4 equals 0. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Does 0 equal 0? Yes. So what is your solution? 11 6. Any questions on that? You good? Do you need to go down?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure we're taking notes so we don't have our phones out. There's a lot of people with phones out. Do you guys want to try this one on your own, or do you need me still? Not yet. First thing you're trying to do is you're trying to get n by itself, so we have to get rid of everything that's with it. This is plus 1, so that's the first thing you want to get rid of. How are we going to do that? We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. 1 minus 1 will eliminate, and you're left with 3n plus 2 to the 1/3 power equals -1. To the 1/3 power is the next thing you have to get rid of so that we can get inside of our radical. This is the same thing as a cube root. So in order to get rid of a cube root, you have to cube it. So we're going to cube both sides. Power to a power, you multiply it, turns to 1. They cancel each other out. You're left with 3n plus 2 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you have -1 cubed. -1 times -1 is a positive 1. And a positive 1 times a -1 is a -1. So -1 cubed is -1. Your goal is to get n by itself. You have 3n plus 2. So we're going to subtract 2 on both sides. That leaves you with 3n equals -3. This is 3 times n, so you're going to do the opposite, which is divide by 3. On the left-hand side, your 3's are going to eliminate, and you're left with n equals -3 divided by 3 gives you -1. Even though you found your solution to n, you still have to check it and make sure that it's not extraneous. So we plug it back into our original equation. Am I going too fast or am I good?
Okay.
Alright, so we found that n equals -1. So let's plug that back in to see. What's our original equation?
Oh, 3 parentheses? No,
No.
parentheses 3.
Oh,
Just say the microphone.
3 plus 2
Yeah.
to the 1/3 power.
Plus 1.
We're gonna plug in -1 for our n. We have an n here. So I have 3 times -1 plus 2 raised to the 1/3 power plus 1 equals 0. This is -3 plus 2 to the 1/3 power plus 1 equals 0. -3 plus 1 is -1 raised to the 1/3 power plus 1 equals 0. The cube root of -1 is -1 plus 1 equals 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 equals 0 is true. So your solution is n equals -1. Good? This is the second one.
Yes.
No, it's not. Can y'all try this one on your own, please? Thank you. Try this one. add 2 to both sides, you got 3 parentheses 5y minus 1 to the 1/3 power equals 2. Then we have to divide by 3, which makes this cancel out. You have 5y minus 1 to the 1/3 power equals 2/3. How do you get rid of a cube root? Cube both sides. These are going to cancel out, leaving you with 5y minus 1. Do you remember what the rule is for this? This is math 1. You have to share this cube
Oh, yeah.
for both of them. So you have 2 cubed over 3 cubed. Is that where we got stuck?
Yeah, because I forgot to give that.
So you have 5y minus 1 equals 2 cubed is 8 over 3 cubed is 27. Gonna add 1 to both sides to get 5y by itself. You get 5y equals 36, I just kind of write 35 over 27. Did I do that right, Glenn?
We don't know.
Yeah, good. Alright, so now you're going to divide by 5 on both sides. This is going to cancel out. Y equals, if you can't do that in your head, type it into a calculator. You're going to get 7 over 27. Dividing by 5 is the same thing as like multiplying it by 1/5. Alright, so when you get y equals 7 over 27, this is what we're going to plug in for our y. So make sure it's not extraneous. What's your original problem?
3 parentheses 5y minus 1. 1/3.
1/3 power.
Yeah. Minus 2 equals 0.
And we're plugging in 7 over 27 for y. So you have 3 parentheses 5 times 7 over 27 minus 1 to the 3rd power minus 2 equals 0. So this gives you 3 parentheses 35 over 27 minus 1 to the 1/3 power minus 2 equals 0. 35 over 27 minus 1, that's going to give you 8 over 27. So 3, this is 8 over 27 to the 1/3 power minus 2 equals 0. This is like saying the cube root of something, but you have to share that to the top and the bottom. You could just type it in your calculator, it's going to tell you the answer. Cube root of 8 is 2, cube root of 27 is 3, minus 2 equals 0. 3 times 2/3 is 6 over 3, which is 2. 2 minus 2 equals 0. Is that correct? Does 0 equal 0? Yes. So your solution is 7 over 27. Okay?